Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, all the in between. It is the Earthmaster out here on this wonderful Saturday night, December 23rd, 2023. 6:58 p.m. here, California time. Latest activity looks like some movement happening out in Hawaii, along with some subsequent earthquake activity here across the regions of the Tonga Trench and the Kermadec Islands area, it looks like. Pacific Plate is definitely moving. Going to jump into the Hawaii activity first, where we're seeing quite a bit of earthquake activity stirring up here. Out in the Big Blue Pacific, notice all this subsequent activity occurring at the same time. So when the Pacific Plate moves, no doubt Hawaii does see some elevated activity. And we're noticing a little swarm of activity here coming in within the last few minutes. You can just see one of those earthquakes here on the seismograph station there at Hot Caves. But this is kind of a series of earthquakes popping off there well below the surface. We did have a 4.1 and a couple other earthquakes following that movement. Now that 4.1 was felt, I would say, over a good area, the populated regions of the Big Island of Hawaii. Doesn't look like any major shaking, but no doubt quite a few folks did report feeling that earthquake. And I'm sure a couple of these earthquakes that are coming in because, somewhat of a decent magnitude there. But the surface here, well, as far as the depth below the surface, those are actually pretty deep. Down there where we could potentially be talking about further magma increasing, flowing up further towards the surface areas. Of course, as you know, we've been looking at higher than normal elevated GPS displacement up here across the summit region of Kilauea Volcano, indicating quite a bit of inflation at its highest level seen since the 2018 eruption, which was a little bit more dramatic out here across from some of the Lanali estates. See if I could spit that out. I had it in my mind, but it just did not want to come out right. I think we're going to see a little bit more further push of magma. This is the activity down below the surface, 27 kilometers or so below the surface. So we need to watch this here as potentially we could be looking at a further increasing flow here to the region around the Big Island, or region around the Kilauea volcano. I did pull up the... Let's see, where is it here? I have a couple of them. This live stream is, or at least one of the images of the lava lake area. I've been saying that we're going to see more of a opportunity. I shouldn't say opportunity, but the potential of fissures opening up outside of that zone, where we've been seeing quite a bit of earthquakes swarming there south of the summit region. I pulled up a webcam image here. I think this is new, 12/23/2023. It looks pretty recent here within the last couple minutes, looks like. Looking out, this is probably looking out towards the west here with that sun going down. I'm not seeing any visible signs of any type of activity at the surface. Again, this earthquake movement is definitely well below the surface. 16 miles. 17 miles for that one. So definitely still say, whoa, that's a whole lot of negative numbers there. I am not a big fan of all that. Look at that. Goodness. And I'm pretty certain that these have been reviewed by a seismologist. Let me double check and see what we got going on here. I was just looking at this. I figured I'd jump on real quick and cover some of this activity because it is kind of popping up all of a sudden. It's been reviewed. And again, these are not surface quakes. If this was a bunch of surface activity, say a mile or so below the surface or shallower, then we'd be talking about probably fissures opening up out here. But with that consistent depth down there, about 27 kilometers, 17 miles or so, we're talking about something bigger brewing down there. Again, I think it may be a little push of some magma coming up from below. Let's go ahead and double check the tilt meters out here, because the tilt meter will give us a good indicator of what's going on out here, right, as far as inflation. And looks like we've kind of leveled out here after seeing the highest level peak here since 2018, at least this go around. Every inflation event here that we've seen over the last couple months is higher than the previous inflation event. So we're going up and up and up. And the question is, I don't know how much more it'll be able to handle. We'll have to see after this newer earthquake activity that's happening below. But it looks like we're starting to level out here a little bit in the last couple hours. But I don't expect that to last long. If the indications here are right, we should continue to see this go up a little bit before we see further possible deflation. But with this newer activity, that may just keep going up and up until we see some type of eruption out here. So definitely some new activity stirring up out here. Here's the past CO2, really not, or SO2 emissions. Not a whole lot of elevated activity because we're not really looking at any eruption currently taking place here at the Kilauea volcano. And I did double check the crater area. There's still volcanic gases coming up here, but no noticeable change there from this current earthquake activity. I don't think the USGS has put out any type of earthquake update on it. Sometimes they do if we see some unusual activity, and this is kind of a decent swarm of activity stirring up down there. So we'll continue to watch that. The Hot Caves Hawaii station is about the closest station there around the region here where that earthquake activity is occurring. And I am sure that those showed up on the seismograph stations here locally. I want to key up one of these, see what we got maybe at this seismograph station. Oh yeah, look at that. Definitely showing up pretty nicely here the past 12 hours. Pretty quiet until we've seen that 4-pointer. And obviously it looks like the 4-pointer was the 4.1 was the first earthquake because it's the largest signature right here. And then there's another one here in the shadow. You have to look at the darker blue here. That's the second largest one, which was at 3.4, looks like. Zoom in here. So, yeah, this one here is kind of, it's hard to tell when you get these little shadows of a seismograph signature overlapping the other one. But definitely it seems like it may be picking up here. We'll watch this as, any new development way down below the surface could be a key indicator of seeing potentially elevated conditions out here in the coming days. Far as volcanic activity goes across the region. So we will continue to watch that, folks. Let's look at the rest of the Pacific. That has been moving here slightly. Philippines been getting on quite a bit of earthquake activity as well. 5.3 coming into the region, about 63 kilometers deep. That's been a pretty active region. Of course, they have seen a lot of earthquake activity here in the last month. Let's see, does it cover? Yeah, it does. Covers that 7.6 back in early December, early this month, and quite a few 6s in there as well. All this aftershock activity occurring within that same region of those quite a few large quakes earlier this month. In fact, they had, they had six pointers. One of those very close to a 7-pointer, and then, of course, the main one is 7.6. So still seeing some aftershock activity out there and some decent aftershock activity. 5.3 coming in within the last hour. And, of course, we're getting some further movement here around the Tonga region. Let's bring up the newest. The latest one of 5.3, fairly shallow. Notice since this morning's deeper movement here, 4.5, this one was 520 kilometers deep into the trench regions. We've been getting some surface adjustment taking place here across this area. And in fact, if you look over the last couple of days, it's been somewhat consistent, but working its way down along the region of the plate boundary. And of course, what sits down here is New Zealand. They have been seeing a little bit of activity out there, including that 5-pointer that stirred up there in the Hikurangi subduction zone a couple days ago, pretty deep into that area. Looks like they're still seeing a little bit of movement, though, but further south in the South Island region, couple 2s and some 3s, 3.7 here last 44 minutes. There's a 4.5 that kicked up about 11 hours ago. That one, I believe, is still associated with the Hikurangi because of that proximity here, that location in proximity to the Hikurangi, which sits just off the eastern coast here. It extends a little bit further down south. So I believe that is a little bit of strain from that 5-pointer that stirred up here in in this area yesterday. That 5-pointer was kicking up way down there, 160 kilometers or so. And, of course, that subduction zone of the Hikurangi. Let's go back out of here. I got 100 windows open up here. I know it's a bad habit. Hikurangi subduction zone right here, right? We've seen that 5-pointer stir up, not at the surface here. There's not a surface earthquake, but 150 kilometers or so into the subduction zone, which is right here. This is that plate boundary, a portion of the plate, the Pacific plate that subducts underneath this area. In fact, this whole region right about here and most of this area here as well. I can't remember if this is... I know the Kermadec Trench obviously is a subduction zone, but I was wanting to think that there's a little area here that's not quite subduction zone type boundaries, but overall you can pretty much assume all of this region right about here is a subduction zone. Down here you got a different type of plate boundary, the Alpine Fault that extends through the west side here of New Zealand. That's another dangerous fault. New Zealand's sitting on a ticking time bomb, so to speak, and that deeper earthquake activity here yesterday with the subsequent movement up north here closer to the strain area is just a little concerning. So we'll keep an eye on New Zealand. The drums out here, see what we got for the earthquake drums for the New Zealand area. There is that's going to be that 4-pointer, or the, which one was that came in? Not the 5-pointer, but it was a little bit smaller that came in today, but a little bit further, more upstream, closer to the surface areas of the Hikurangi subduction zone. And then some of the activity stirring up here in the last couple hours is, let's see, where's that? They said there was a 3.7. I'm guessing that's going to be that quake right here, closer to the South Island station there. But obviously it looks like some movement wanting to stir up out here across New Zealand, so just pay attention. Definitely looks like things may be getting ready to move down here, especially with that activity stirring up north here as well along the plate boundary. So just be on guard. Let's see what else we got. Look at the earthquake 3D map here. South America, I'm not really seeing anything major going on down there for now. Typical earthquake activity. And for the rest of the globe, looks typical as well. What do we got going on up here in Iceland? 3.1 coming in right now. So let's go check it out, see what's stirring up out there. They haven't put out a update yet today as far as any, further indicator of impending eruption or any type of informational statement here. They normally don't unless things are really kicking up here across the region of Iceland. Blowing snow. Okay, we don't need to know about that, but the latest update was put out here yesterday, so we don't really have any more information on it. And again, this was put out yesterday here. Let's go check out the earthquake activity there across the region, see where that earthquake, see that's way up here. That's well away from the Grindavik area, right? Doesn't mean that we're not going to see any further, volcanic activity across this region, but that 3.1 coming in, very shallow though, 1.1 kilometers below the surface, obviously within some volcanic regions there in the circles. There's a major rift zone out here, an extended rift zone here across the Svartsengi area in the Grindavik region. But far as down here, things are, as you can see, only one earthquake in the last 12 hours. Not that big of a deal for now, but that doesn't mean that things won't kick back up. Let me bring up the live stream around here in this area, live from Iceland. Obviously, the lava field still looks like it's got a couple hot spots out there. These multi-view webcams here. Unless, like maybe there was I don't think there was a volcanic eruption out there. They're seeing earthquake activity where that 3-pointer struck, but I'm not seeing any signs of anything going on out there specifically around that area. But we'll continue to watch that and then report back on anything if it changes. So 3.1 up there for now. Let's check out California, see if anything's moving up here. We got the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone showing some movement. And it's down there about 12 kilometers or so, 14 kilometers into the subduction zone, which extends and ends roughly about here. But got to remember this subduction zone area, this plate is being subducted deeper and deeper as it heads right on the map here underneath the Northern California area, and that extends all the way up through a good portion of Western Oregon, Washington, Vancouver Island range, and ends right about here around the Queen Charlotte Sound. So this whole area is a huge sleeping giant monster of a earthquake maker. So we had a couple twos, it looks like, in the last 24 hours. I want to double check the tremor map here tonight and see what may be brewing out here. 82 epicenters of tremor, a little bit down here in northern Cal, Oregon, and up into Washington as well. We haven't really seen any major uptick in tremor since about the October of last year time frame. We've seen a couple events this year, but I tell you what, it's not that. It's been pretty quiet in terms of these regular occurrences here of earthquake activity. It doesn't look like it's been this quiet since about 2019 or so. Even then, that looked like there was more back then, more consistent activity. But tremor is kind of a new thing in terms of studying earthquake potentials along these subduction zones. But I think it is of noteworthy value to keep tabs on how often these tremors kick up and how many do take place. Tremors these are not volcanic tremors, but slow slip events here across the subduction zone area underneath this land, about 35, 45 kilometers into the subduction zone. They're kind of the best word to use. A lot of people don't like it, but it's a slow slip type of earthquake. Earthquakes, are basically a sudden release of built-up strain. This is more or less like a vibrational slow movement between the two plates here. And of course, that means potentially that we're adding, increasing and further strain up at the surface levels, or at least in the locked area that sits just offshore here of Northern California and up through the Vancouver Island ranges. So still looking at the big one day, right? We keep saying that, but I think we're well overdue. We've been living in some easy times recently, at least in the information age now. We haven't really seen any catastrophic earthquake activity here. It's coming, though. Definitely got to be prepared for it. Not scaremongering, but it's there. The potential is there, and ask any geologist, any scientist, anyone that knows anything about earthquakes and plate tectonics. All right, Southern California, we're watching a couple spots down here, San Bernardino Mountains and the Los Angeles area. It doesn't look like things have stirred up too much throughout the day today. These earthquakes were this morning. So things look like they may be just tapering off slightly here. Not seeing anything in the last hour. Looks like most of the movement there was earlier this afternoon. Texas out here still rocking and rolling out in the oil fields of Pecos, Texas region. And some smaller earthquakes there from yesterday. Let me check out the Yellowstone map here to see what's going on. Not really seeing too much. There's a couple earthquakes here. Is this the right time? 1930? 0300 UTC time? Yep. UTC time here is 316 or so. So I don't really see any earthquake activity. Maybe a couple small ones right here, but Yellowstone is a sleeping giant, and it's best that it stays sleeping. Puerto Rico area, another heightened region. And then look at that swarm right there in that area I said to watch here. That is kicking up pretty nicely. We checked this out here yesterday, I think. Looked at the potential of larger quakes, and they historically have a lot of large quakes out here. But it's been a while. It's been quite a while since we've seen any large-scale movement here. I think the most recent one was back in, I think it was like 1945 or something. So a little bit of time and stress is built up in this region. It's looking like it's potentially could be brewing up something big out here. This is a region that did see that 5.3 yesterday. And again, since then, it's been, throwing off some smaller quakes. We'll continue to watch that. Puerto Rico Trench area. Let's see. Got some further movement here into the south of Port Vila, Vanuatu region. This area is pretty quiet here in the last couple days, right? But it's filled in. Definitely has filled in fairly nicely. Looking at the last 7 days here, still shows a little potential quiet zone, and that is north of the swarming area. That could be a good indicator of this region about ready to show some movement. Roughly about I would say Solomon Sea down across this plate boundary here could see some adjustment taking place very soon. So keep your eye on that region as well. The rest of the globe here, not a whole lot of activity across the Mediterranean. The Atlantic, aside from that 3.1 up in Iceland, is quiet for now. Way up into Canada, we've seen a kind of an odd earthquake, 4-pointer. Way up north of the Brooks Range here, 1.6 kilometers below surface, so pretty shallow earthquake. Obviously, there's quite a bit of fault systems that run up here, and historical data, I think it was a couple years back, we've seen a decent large earthquake. Man, I can't remember the magnitude, but I'm thinking it was up in the upper sixes as far as that activity goes. But as you can see, historical data in the white circles, anywhere from 5 to 6.0 magnitude earthquakes, it looks like, within this region. So earthquake activity does take place out here in this area of Alaska. Goodness, we're just lighting up like crazy all over. Gonna get this party started up here on Saturday night. Goodness. All right, space weather activity. See what's going on here on the sun. Quiet. Got all this uptick in earthquake activity, and it's quiet on the sun. No major solar flares been thrown at us. No major CMEs, but yet here we are seeing elevated earthquake activity. Just take note. Keep tabs on it. I'm definitely keeping tabs of what's going on here with the space weather and earthquake potential related relationship. Not a whole lot of auroras coming in here. Again, no major CMEs, no major coronal holes, no major alignments. Obviously, we're in alignment with the sun. I would hope we are. As far as sunspots go, there's numerous and many and plenty. But the separation consists amongst all the cores out here. Therefore, the likelihood of any large flare activity is diminished. Let's see what we got in the latest imagery here. Continued separation here. Goodness. Yeah, that's all I have to say about this. There's not a whole lot of potential out here. I'm wanting to pick a region here, maybe of some hope, glimmer of hope of seeing a flare, but I'm just not seeing it. So I'm just going to go with that. I don't really see any potential of any flaring. Maybe a C flare, but even so, we're just leveling out here around the B flare category. C flare, 99% certainty. I guess that's okay. Flaring at M flare levels, I doubt it. X flare around 1% or less. That's my observations with a quick view of the magnetic polarity activity out here. Just doesn't look all that active here, folks. What else we got here for Storm Prediction Center? Anything major going on out there? This is the current day one outlook. This is for, is this into Sunday? This says day one, but technically Saturday. So is this for tomorrow? Oh, this is maybe for this evening, it looks like. Little bit of tornado potential out there. Looks like a 2%. Main threat's going to be some wind and hail. Let me check out the numerical models here and see what we got going on. Yeah, we got a little bit of moisture coming up from the Gulf. Also, that low pressure that Southern California had just seen is now interacting with that moisture here in Texas and going to be stirring up that potential for severe weather tonight and tomorrow. That's going to move east, bringing with it quite a bit of rainfall up there, spinning up into the northern plains, wrapping around some colder air to bring back some snow potential on the backside of this low. Yeah, that's a beautiful low pressure system tapping into all that moisture right there. Goodness. That's going to scoot out of here. Our next storm system here on the west coast begins, looks like not Christmas, but right around the 27th, it looks like 26th, 27th time period. We're going to see some rain coming in. Not a whopper of a storm. Looks like the storm system coming up towards this weekend will be a little bit better. A little bit more moisture flow up from the south, getting Southern California wet as well. Wow, look at that low that just formed off the coast of Baja into Mexico. That's a subtropical jet, typical that you see in an El Nino pattern. And, ooh, goodness. Looks, ooh, yes, please, and thank you very much. Yes, I love to end the updates just like that, because that is a beautiful image. I'm hoping that stays that way. Please don't change. It's a ways out, but it looks like around the second week of January, things look to be really wet out here in Northern California. That's some quite some impressive rainfall rates. Far as the total accumulated precipitation out here, I always like to look at this. One model here, the GFS model, showing some pretty decent totals out here. Let's see here. I don't think this is going to go way in there. This only goes to about the 29th. A little bit of rain out here. Looks like maybe an inch and a half from these next couple systems. But there we go. That looks pretty good. I'll take it. Either way, that's moisture, and I appreciate it. Definitely looks like that may hold up here. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, trying to think here. There's all sorts of stuff here to watch tonight. You know, a lot of movement going on. It seems like when Hawaii really starts kicking up below here, we should see some activity potentially start acting up around the volcano. That's not just one earthquake, but a couple decent earthquakes way down below here. So things looks like they're getting ready to move. The Pacific Plate looks generally quite active here tonight. So we'll keep an eye on things. Seismograph stations right now look pretty quiet, but that can change in the blink of an eye. Let us know what you're doing out here on this fine Saturday night. Let us know if you have any plans here for the holiday week coming up. I'm probably just going to keep it low-key here with me and Miss Mimi's and the kids and the family. Not really I don't have any major plans for this holiday season. But we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow. Unless something major happens tonight, which, of course, we'll jump back in here. Have a good one. Stay safe out there. And as always, have an earthquake plan. Take care.